professional development, starting now. Okay, everyone, it's 10 o'clock, so to honor your time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see here. I don't know why it's having me to admit everyone individually, admit all. It should be letting everyone join in, but it's not. So. Okay. Okay, so once again, if you could sign in, if not, I will email the link to Dr. Cash Green to send out, or we'll send it out to everyone so you can get proper credit for this professional development opportunity. So just a little background on myself. I'm a mathematics teacher, and when I started teaching about 20 years ago, they used to offer a class called Consumer Math. As you may know, they have taken that out of the curriculum, but there's a growing need for it to go back, and we'll see that today. Let me see, look like more participants. Okay. And while teaching mathematics, especially in the urban inner city schools, my students always wanted to know, well, how do I use this math in my everyday life, the real world? So I was always on the hunt for opportunities and things I can bring into my classroom to make the math more real to them. And I also kind of brought a lot of things in from my own personal experience. I was on my own at a very young age, so a lot of things I learned, it was from trial and error. So based on my experiences, I wanted to share what I learned with my students about finances and things like that. And they loved it and benefited from it tremendously. So with that being said, you may feel like you don't know enough about personal finance or financial literacy, but trust me, you know way more than your students, and a little bit of knowledge that you have can definitely help them throughout their journey. Let's see if I have any more that came in. Everybody's in. Okay. So with that being said, South Carolina Economics is in the business of helping K-12 teachers teach economics and financial literacy. They provide, it's a free center, they provide resources and training necessary to help implement economics and financial literacy in the classroom. And as you may know, that this is National Financial Literacy Month. And by the way, at the end of the presentation, once I have your email address, I will send this whole presentation to everyone, so you don't have to worry about copying notes or anything. Thank you. The centers are university-based, so they have 4 centers: Darla School of Business, Winthrop Economic Education, USC College of Education, and Columbia College. You can reach out to them at any time. All right, this video would not let me embed it, so I'm gonna get out of here so we can take a quick look at this video as it talks about the need for financial.
The guidelines for financial education in schools, just like they do for math or English. Today's report from the Council for Economic Education finds just 17 states require high school students to take a personal finance class to graduate. We went to East Greenwich, Rhode Island to talk to students currently taking classes in business, finance, and investing to find out what they thought. How many of you think that students all over the country should have a personal finance class? And how many of you think the personal finance class makes you smarter about managing your own money? These teens say what they've learned will help them be smarter about managing their debt, investing, and even running their own business.
If we're educated, we can make the right choices on the right credit cards with interest rates and all of the liabilities that they carry.
And the price of college today is insanely high. So you have to make sure you're going to be able to make money after college and pay that back.
Knowing about personal finance, it's definitely contributed to the successfulness of my small little business.
But a new survey by the Council for Economic Education finds 2/3 of states don't make financial education a requirement for graduation. Teacher Patricia Page says students across the country, not just in her class, need it.
100% of our students are going to need to make financial decisions even before they graduate. They need to be prepared, and our job is to prepare them.
Her students know that personal finance classes are helpful, but getting states to require schools to offer them has been a slow process. Just 2 years ago, Rhode Island didn't even have standards for teaching financial education until a group of East Greenwich students successfully advocated for change. It may be that student-led action is what is needed to get more states to do the same. And we have much more about this report. You can go to our website, powerlunch.cnbc.com. Joe.
Yeah, that makes
Okay, we'll stop that right there. But the need is definitely there. And since that video was in 2016, we've made some progress. And 21 states require high school students to take a course in personal finance, which is an increase of 4 states since 2018. We have 25 states that require high school students to take a course in economics, which is an increase of 3 states since 2018. We have 5 states plus the District of Columbia that still do not include personal finance in their standards. And then while most states are requiring economics and personal finance to graduate, 6 fewer are conducting economics testing and 2 fewer are conducting personal finance testing. Anybody know the status of South Carolina before we look at that slide? Feel free to speak up. No?
Well, I don't recall financial literacy classes being offered in like the high schools I taught in. I know that there's an economics requirement, but it's like a half credit. It's more of like an overview.
Okay.
I'm probably an old head, but I remember a few years ago, I taught financial literacy through a course called on consumer math. Okay, but I've been teaching 40 years, so that was a few years ago. Just recently, it seems like they were working on a bill that will require some financial literacy in the schools in South Carolina, in high schools in South Carolina, but it's not an individual course. It seemed like they said it was supposed to be embedded into some other courses, but when I went through all the topics that they said was going to be embedded in other courses, it really needs to be a whole course.
I agree. So that is true. And that bill, so this is from the State Department website, and it tells us that the financial literacy instructions shall be incorporated within current courses throughout the state. So they didn't necessarily name the particular courses. And as I stated before, as adults, we have learned so much, over the years through our financial struggles and so forth that we can share with students. But the actual code of law is from 2018. And again, it emphasizes that financial literacy within courses currently offered in high school. So basically, what I was doing, incorporating in my math class is acceptable, but it's typically seen throughout the social studies curriculum. And these are some of the topics, the areas that we know our students need assistance with, which consists of, balancing your checkbook, how to complete a loan application, things like that. All right, let's look at the 2016 survey of the states.
In the United States today, 4 in 10 millennials say they are overwhelmed with debt. 1 in 4 student loan borrowers are in default or behind in payments. And 1 in 2 millennials say they are living paycheck to paycheck. The U.S. is one of the richest countries in the world. When it comes to financial literacy, we are nowhere near the top. As a nation, we are effectively financially illiterate. And yet, we have not made this a priority in our schools. Introducing the 2016 Survey of the States, a biennial snapshot of economic and financial education in our nation's schools, presented by the Council for Economic Education. Among our findings, only 20 states require high school students to take an economics course. Only 17 states require high school students to take a course in personal finance. On the threshold of financial crisis in 2007, 23 states required economics testing. Now, it's States down to only 16 states. How do we improve students' financial literacy? Simple. Require economic and personal finance education throughout our children's formative years. We need to teach these important topics in the classroom starting in kindergarten and make them a part of our daily conversations at home. Research shows that mandated financial education improves financial behaviors later in life, including increased credit scores and lower default rates, which in turn makes smarter consumers, savers, and borrowers. Take action today to help our youth become financially literate. Visit surveyofthestates.com to learn more about how you can create change in your school, district, or state.
All right, so the action that we are trying to take is first getting our teachers on board with understanding the needs. So that I have some engagement here. Can I get someone to read this first box here? Volunteers.
About 1/4 of millennials spend more than they earn.
What do you think about that? And anyone can feel free to chime in. Think it's true or false?
True.
Definitely true.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, for me, I'll be honest. I'll get things that I really don't need. They'll be on sale and I buy them because they're on sale, but really and truly, I could do without them.
Yes, yes, yes.
I
And
think that
go ahead.
I was going to say I think that also is because we use a lot of debit cards and Cash App and things like that. So money is intangible and real as it was when you were spending cash, where you could actually see how much money you have left.
That is so true. Such a valid point.
And being
And
confined in the house has not helped very, very much either, because especially with Amazon, I think I think I pick up something by my door every day. In fact, I just went outside and picked up a package.
You know, that is so true with us being, like he said, with the Cash App. We're spending monies that we need to be holding on to, but we're constantly spending those money to get things that we think we're going to need, and we may not even need them.
And they say the average credit score in South Carolina is 622, which is the second lowest in the nation. Now, personally, 622 is not so bad, but nevertheless,
yeah,
that's a stat.
Second lowest? Wow.
All right, another reader right here on the left, bottom left.
Have less than 3 months of emergency funds, 67% of Generation Y.
Which right now is proven to be crucial in this day and time with this pandemic, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then the last one, another reader. We have 1 out of 6 students in the United States do not reach the baseline proficiency in financial literacy. Any thoughts on that one? No thoughts, huh?
What's baseline proficiency?
So the Organization of Economic Cooperation or Development, they gave a standardized test on financial literacy. And those test items, like some of them are actually available online for you to view. So, you know, and it was on basic things like, you know, checkings and savings accounts, how to, you know, fill out a credit loan application, things like that. And so based on those test results, only 1 out of 6 of the students scored proficient. So we're going to move into some resources that you can use in your classrooms, that you can use at home with your own children now, and you can share with neighbors and friends to help with financial literacy. From the State Department website, they have a list of instructional materials, and all of them are pretty much free that are available. They also have a list of personal finance resources, of which I've used quite a few of them, especially through Junior Achievement, which I love the resources they have. But again, you'll get all this information for you to explore. Here is an app that you can have your students or your children to download. They can earn as they learn. It's called Zogo, and it's actually pretty fun. I tried it. So as they are learning about personal finance, they have opportunities to earn like these pineapple points. And those pineapple points, they turn into gift cards that they will earn. So this is something positive for them to do. The modules are very, very short and to the point, and you actually can learn a lot. This was pretty fun too. It's an Uber game. Can you make it as an Uber driver with 2 kids to support a mortgage payment due in a week? You know, our students like that fast money, and they don't realize working for Uber, Lyft, you're like a private contractor. You have to pay taxes at the end of the year. You have other expenses and so on and so forth. So it actually takes them through those scenarios. It takes them through scenarios of actually picking up a person. If they're late, are you going to wait for them? It's pretty engaging. Okay, another resource that you can use in your classroom, and especially now through this distant learning, is Everify. They have a lot of curriculum available that's free, including like Black history, personal finance, character development, soft skills, and so forth. So just a few resources for you. Now, most of the teachers in this workshop are from Palmetto Unified School District, so we have a special message and for you from our Teacher of the Year, our State Teacher of the Year.
To the amazing teachers of the Palmetto Unified School District, welcome to your National Financial Literacy Month PD, hosted by my friend, your wonderful District Teacher of the Year, Miss Tamikah Battle. Before you begin, I would like to share a few words of gratitude. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication over the past month during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is because of you that students in the Palmetto Unified School District are able to continue to learn. I know that it is hard being away from your students because they look to you for hope, guidance, and inspiration. But hang in there and remember that this too shall pass. Even though we are social distancing, make sure that you are taking time to connect with your colleagues, with your families, and with your friends by phone calls or even a letter in the mail. Use this time for self-care, reflection, and to get closer to your families. You are all amazing, and please know that we are all in this together. Stay safe, healthy, and enjoy your PD. See you later.
She is such a joy. So I hope you are inspired. The next phase we're getting ready to go into is a demo lesson, a very short demo lesson that you can share with your students. You can modify and adjust as you see fit. You can modify up or down depending on your grade level. But the idea of financial literacy is to get the message out to our students and meet their needs. So how to get and keep good credit. That is pretty much the topic of this particular PD. Now, keep in mind that if you're dealing with adult learners like we do in PUSD, they may want to know some very specific in terms of loans. For example, how to get a car loan, a house loan. But this presentation is for loans in general. So how do lenders evaluate the risk when making loans? Our objectives are to describe the 3 C's of credit, which are capacity, character, and collateral, and factors used to measure or assess them. We want to evaluate the riskiness of lending to an individual based on capacity, character, and collateral, and explain the factors that impact a person's credit score. So what is capacity? Consider the individual's ability to repay the loan. So some factors are the amount and source of income, the steadiness of your income, the amount of monthly living expenses, number of dependents, and level of education and training. So let's talk about some of these factors. So where does your amount and source of income typically come from?
Your job.
All right. So when you're going for a loan, how do you typically have to verify that?
Your W-2 forms.
Yes. And this is essential for PUSD teachers when you're discussing this with our offenders, because some of them do have jobs and they are able to verify income, but some of them will decide, unfortunately, to go back to the streets, and they need to understand that in order to get a loan and to move forward, you have to have verifiable income. I actually had this conversation with my students on yesterday. We also look for steadiness in income. How many years are you with that employer? Things like that. So try to find employment that you're kind of pleased with, so you don't hop around a lot. Then after we look at the income, we have to subtract what do you pay out every month, your expenses. Especially when you're looking at purchasing a home, they look at your debt to income ratio. We take out child support and so forth. Then you have to take out the number of dependents you're currently supporting on that particular income. Now, how do you think your level of education and training plays a role in your capacity in terms of your ability to repay a loan? That's a question I'm putting on the floor.
I would guess they would argue that the higher your level of education and training, the more likely they are to give you a loan. Not that I agree, but I'm guessing that's probably what they do.
So they will also look at your ability, your level of education typically determines your ability to make a certain amount of money. Because I know, like, even for example, this is kind of like off on the side, like a child support case. If someone's not paying child support, they'll look at your level of education and training, and they will impute you a salary based off your level of education. So in this particular environment of a loan, they would assume you have a particular level of education and training that you can, probably make what you're making or more, so on and so forth. And this is important because, like, some of our students right now are in limbo. They don't really want to come to class because they can't take the GED right now. So I have to constantly remind them why the education and training is so important. The next area is character. Consider the individual's reliability to repay the loan. So, of course, character, what is the individual's reliability to repay the loan? Some of the factors are your credit score, of course, which measures an individual's credit risk based on his or her bill payment history, the length of using credit balances as a percentage of his or her credit limit, and other measures, the years of living at the same address, criminal record, and the quality of character and references. So when we put that criminal record up there, you have the red flags for students in our environment. So how does your criminal record impact your credit score? So a criminal record can impact a person's credit score in the following ways. Of course, one's ability to get a job, okay? And that relates to the capacity, ability to contribute to your capacity. So many employers conduct background checks, which we know. One's ability to rent an apartment or home, as many landlords run background checks on potential tenants. This one is important. Civil infractions that come with fines. A lot of our offenders experience that. It can be reported to a debt collection agency by the government if it's left unpaid. And here's the impact of that. It could affect a person's credit score up to 100 points, and most people are not aware of that. Certain public records like tax liens, and it may count against a person's credit rating. And because character is subjective, a loan officer may see that a person has a criminal record and choose to deny credit because of this. And we know that's very true. All right, and the last area, collateral. Consider the individual's assets that could be used to repay the loan. All right, so some factors: amount of financial assets. Do you have a savings account, stocks and bonds? In other words, what do you have in the event that you default on this loan? Market value of real estate assets. You have a boat, you own land, and so on and so forth. Jewelry, anything that can be considered collateral. So the three big concepts we have here are your credit report, your credit score, and credit reporting agency. So let me get a volunteer to read about the credit report, just kind of recap. Volunteer.
Report. A track record of your payment history, current debt, other financial information can affect your ability to get a loan, rent an apartment, or qualify for a job.
That's so true. All right, credit score. Another volunteer, please.
A
Agree.
grade that measures your credit worthiness as an individual, similar to a school GPA, FICO score, most widely used score.
Okay. And a credit reporting agencies.
Companies that collect and maintain consumer credit information and then resell it to other businesses in the form of a credit report. 3 major: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
Those are the 3 major credit bureaus. So what is a FICO score? Let's see what this is about.
Why do you need to understand what a FICO score is and how it's used? Because it's the credit score most commonly used by U.S. lenders. Every day, thousands of lenders use it to more accurately understand your credit risk and make more well-informed credit granting decisions. In a nutshell, the FICO score is a number that predicts how likely you are to pay back a loan or other credit obligations in a timely fashion. The FICO scores are calculated from the data in your credit reports housed at the 3 main credit bureaus. The scores consider information about your payment history, use of available credit, plus other factors. Most of us have FICO scores for each of our credit reports. Of course, if you don't have any recently reported credit history, you won't have a FICO score. FICO scores are dynamic and can change up or down if and when your data at the credit bureaus changes. And they're calculated in real time, so they're current as of the time you or a lender requests them. FICO scores generally range from 300 to 850. The higher the score, the lower the risk for the lender. Ultimately, your FICO scores are in your hands because it's based on your credit habits as captured in your credit report. Your FICO scores do not determine whether you're approved for credit or what interest rate is assigned. That's up to the lender, but it does help the lender make that credit granting decision. So why do FICO scores matter to you? First, it makes the lending process faster and more fair. It provides you with more credit choices at competitive rates, and you'll get faster answers from lenders since the scores streamline the application process. And it applies the same set of standards to all borrowers. Finally, as you prepare to apply for a loan and view your own FICO scores, you can see what a lender sees. Your credit history all rolled up in a 3-digit number that predicts your likelihood to pay your bills on time.
All right, so with teenagers in particular, high schoolers, we like to talk about FICO score and compare it to like a GPA. I think they understand GPAs pretty well. And they understand that they have to have a certain GPA to earn scholarships, to get into colleges, and so on and so forth. So let's just say a 4.0 GPA would be like you're in the green, you know, whereas a 1.5, a 2.0, you're kind of in the red area. So that's one, you know, kind of comparison you can use when trying to get teenagers to understand, you know, what a FICO score is. So before we looked at the stats, and the average score in South Carolina was about 622, which where you were in the yellow. Not bad, but we want to try to work toward the green so you can get the best loan rates, and you'll have a better chance of getting a loan in general. So this is the range. And then the delinquency rates by FICO scores, for example, and this is why if you have a higher credit score, lenders will typically allow you to get a loan quicker or faster because the delinquency rate and percentage are very low. So if you're in the 800 range, for example, chances of you paying late is slim to none, it's at 1%, versus somebody who has a 350 to 499. So the chances are very high that you are going to be delinquent, which what's a result of this, of you having a very low credit score? Anybody want to chime in? If you have a low credit score, what happens to you when you try to get a loan?
You either get a high interest rate or you don't get the loan.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So some people, in some cases, like you have life changes, you go through a divorce or some things happen, and it may bring your credit score down, and you may qualify for a loan, but like you said, at a higher rate. So some people may choose to still get it because of the need, but remember, as your score goes up and time goes on, you can always refinance to get a lower loan. So that's a conversation with some of the older students. This slide breaks down that FICO score even more, and you can see how this score, the factors of this score. So 35% comes from your payment history, how well you are paying your bills on time, your loans, your credit cards, and so forth. And then 30% comes from capacity used, the amount that you owe. So for example, if you have a credit card and your limit is $1,000, you only want to spend up to 30% of that, at least before the billing period ends. And 30% of 1,000 is about how much? Anybody want to guess?
300.
Yeah. So you ought to spend like $300 so that your credit score maintains a good rating, because anytime you go over that utilization rate, it lowers your credit score. So here's the idea behind that. If possible, you want to try to, if you need to use a credit card, you have a credit card, try to get one with a large limit on it, so that your utilization rate is low. Because if you have a credit card with $1,000 limit and you purchase something for $600, then your credit score is going to go down. So just keep that in mind. Then we have the credit history, the length, amount of time that you actually have a credit card, a car payment, things like that. And of course, we want to see that their history is in good standing for the most part. Types of credit used, that's 10%, and your past credit applications. Like you don't want a lot of people pulling your credit, because those inquiries do affect your rating as well. All right, so if we were in a regular classroom setting, this would be an example of an activity that you could do with students. And I'll just read it. It says, students play the role of credit providers and assess the credit worthiness of an individual with a loan request and randomly selected borrower characteristics. Students classify those characteristics based on the 3 C's of credit, which are capacity, character, and collateral. Assess the riskiness of lending to that individual based on these characteristics, and then decide whether or not to approve or deny the loan request. So this activity is available. The link is there. So when I see this presentation, you can feel free to access it. But it kind of looks like this. It has everything laid out, and it has the actual cards that you would cut up to put in a group, so the students would gain the characteristics and stuff. And by the end of this activity, the students will be able to determine how to get and keep good credit. So of course you would debrief. Since we are in a virtual environment and our students have access to the internet in the classroom as well, you can use some of these activities as an extension. The first one is just an article from the New York Times. It talks about the new changes with the FICO score and so forth. So you can have students to read that and debrief on that. This next one is a simulator, which we'll actually go through this one. And then this one is a play credit cash and battle your way to perfect credit scores. So this is something that you can do virtually. Let's look at the simulator. It's a little fun. So the simulator consists of 10 questions, and you will randomly, okay, let's just go through it. It says, how many credit cards do you have? So let's just say we have 2 or 4. How long did you get your first credit card? Let's say between 6 months and 2 months ago. How long ago did you get your first loan? Okay, you can say I never had a loan. And how many loans or credit cards do you have you applied for in the last year? Let's just say 1. How recently have you opened a new loan or credit card? Let's say between 3 and 6 months ago. How many of your loans or credit cards currently have a balance? 5 to 6. Besides any mortgage loans, what are your total balances on all other loans and credit cards combined? Let's just say 500 to 1,000. When did you last miss a loan or credit card payment? Let's say I never missed a payment. And how many of your loans or credit cards are currently past due? Let's just say we don't have any past due. What percent of your total credit card limits do your credit card balances represent? Let's say 30 to 39. In the last 10 years, have you ever experienced bankruptcy, repossession, or an account in collections? Let's just say no. So you can take your students, or they can actually go through these different scenarios and see, what their FICO score could possibly be. And I think that's a really good activity, especially for high school students.
It's a good activity for me.
Yeah. All right, so I think the next 2 or 3 slides I put in here because I did this presentation with my my offenders, and they have some additional questions. So after you get your credit report, it must be a slide. Okay, there it is. It says, so for your adult students, for example, one thing you want to encourage them to do is order their free annual credit report. And actually, in my institution, I printed the hard copy out, and a lot of them ordered their own free credit report. So they can order it while they're incarcerated. You can also get a free credit report, in case you didn't know, if you're recently turned down for credit, if you're unemployed and plan to look for a job soon, if you receive welfare or government assistance, and are a victim of identity theft. And then after you get the credit report, what do? So you should review it. You should dispute any items that are inaccurate, out of date, or that you believe cannot be verified. This is very important for our offenders because so many of them experience identity theft. And unfortunately, some of their family members use their identities while they are incarcerated. So when they are back on the street, sometimes it's a little more difficult to get their life back on track, if they are faced with this challenge, in addition to their other challenges. Okay, so negative items should only appear in your credit report for 7 years. For those offenders who've been incarcerated over 7 years, and they still have those things in the credit, they can dispute them and get them off. Of course, except bankruptcy, 10 years. And if someone has stolen your identity, you will need to file a police report and submit it to all 3 major credit bureaus. Additionally, you can add a fraud alert, a credit freeze, and a credit lock. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the credit freeze and the credit lock. A fraud alert, and this is just for your information too, I'm not sure if you know this, you should only put a fraud alert on your account really and truly if you've been a victim of fraud and you have filed a police report. Because if you don't, it may cause you some problems when you go into lenders because they're gonna ask you to fill out some additional paperwork, and also they will ask you to provide the police report if you have it. So you gotta go through a lot of red tape if you put a fraud alert on your credit and you don't have any documentation. So the difference between a credit freeze and a credit lock, this is important. So a credit freeze is a tool that lets you restrict access to your credit file, making it harder for identity thieves to open new accounts in your name. It must be placed individually with all 3 credit bureaus. A credit freeze doesn't affect your credit score. You will need to lift the freeze temporarily, either for a specific time or purchase. Like if you know that you're going to purchase a vehicle, for example, you will need to actually lift that freeze. So a credit freeze is governed by law, which ensures that it's free. Lifting the freeze requires a PIN. It can be used to unlock it online, or that you may request it in writing. Versus a credit lock, it blocks access to your credit file, so no one can open a new account in your name. It must be placed with all 3 credit bureaus. It doesn't affect your credit score, and this one may require a monthly fee, but some people like it because it's faster and easier to lift a credit lock, and it can be done instantly online or using a mobile app, and no PIN is required. So the recommendation for those who are concerned about like identity theft is pretty much a credit freeze for the most part. But just keep in mind that if you have a credit or put a freeze on your credit, you will have to temporarily unfreeze it when you decide to apply for some items. So my students want to know how to build their credit. And the first thing I tell them is, if possible, some of them have, spouses at home, if they could add them on as an authorized user on one of their credit cards. And this is especially for, of course, if that person has good credit and a good credit history, like on a credit card. Because what most people don't know is when you add someone as an authorized user, they inherit your credit history for that card. So like if, for example, if you had the credit card from 2010, then that person now credits that history as well, which is a good thing and a real good booster in building your credit. So me personally, I have also did this with my own children. You can add a person on as an authorized user and you don't have to give them the card necessarily. Or if you give them the card, in the case of my children, I have put a limit as far as what they can spend on it. So a lot of these things I take from my personal experience. As I recall, entering college on my own, and I purchased a vehicle myself. I didn't have a co-signer. I didn't have any established credit, which meant that I had to pay a much higher interest rate than I should have had, someone co-signed for me or I had some type of established credit. So due to that experience, I share this knowledge with other people, and I also try to prepare my own children for success as they grow up and try to establish credit on their own. But at least when they get to that point, they will have had some type of established credit. Get a secure credit card. You secure this with your own money. Most secured credit cards come through credit unions. Get a credit builder loan or secured loan the same way with your own funds. As I was stating before, in my own case, use a cosigner if you can. If someone will cosign for you to get a loan or a car or something like that. Of course, these have to be some trusted folks here. And get credit for bills you pay. This is fairly new. So rent reporting services such as Rental Karma, some credit bureaus acknowledge this. Experian Boost currently offers a way to have cell phones and utility bills reflected on your credit report. And again, not every credit score or bureau will take this into consideration, but that is a way to try to start building credit.
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
If you have an authorized user, you said the authorized user can piggyback on your credit.
Yes.
But can the authorized user have an adverse effect on your credit?
Well, ultimately, when you add a user to your credit card, like, you are ultimately responsible for that card and for that bill. So you do have to be careful as far as who you decide to add. Now, let's say that authorized user do not pay their bill. The bill is now up. It's on you. You have to either pay it, And in my case, my own son, he didn't pay his bill, so I froze his card. But I did pay the bill because it does reflect my credit as well as his credit.
Okay.
So, any other questions so far? All right, practice good credit habits. So what are some good credit habits? Make 100% of your payments on time if possible. And if not, don't ignore them. Try to reach out to the creditors and make some payment arrangements. Try to do whatever you can to establish good credit habits and keep your credit good with your creditors. So especially right now, a lot of people are experiencing hardships with COVID-19. So it's best not to ignore your creditors, but in fact, contact with them. A lot of them will work with you, especially during a time of crisis such as this, or life-changing events, hospitalizations, and different things like that. If you use credit cards, keep your credit utilization low. We've pretty much discussed that. We like to try to keep that below 30% if possible. Avoid.
Okay, does this mean you have to have a balance of not less than 70%?
Yeah, that's the idea, in order for it to not to adversely affect your credit.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So
the student has a question she wanted to ask you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Ms. Battle?
Yes.
Let me ask you a quick question. When you have credit cards and you want to increase your credit score, I know that sometimes they tell you to open a new account in terms of a credit card, you have to have revolving credit.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you constantly keep opening different credit cards, but you're paying them on time, you're not late on anything, and let's say you're paying them early, it doesn't seem as if your credit score continuously increases rapidly. So what are some things that you can really do to improve that credit score outside of, let's say, a CD from the bank or whatever? And I know that you need to pay more than you're supposed to be paying monthly on a credit card, but what are some other things that you can do to, and I know it's not a quick fix thing, but what are some things that you can suggest to increase that credit score? And I know it's over a time span, but what are some things that you would suggest to do?
So that's a very good question, and anyone can feel free to jump in, but I will answer to the best of my ability. I'm not an expert, but nevertheless, in general, the recommendation is to space out when you are opening up new credit cards, at least 6 months in between. The whole idea behind credit is time. So like you said, when you open up a new account, it's not an instant reflection on the score, so to speak. In some cases, it may even go down a bit because of the inquiry on the credit, but it's how you pay over time. That's really the key to credit. And this is another reason why they encourage you not to close your credit cards accounts if possible, because one of the factors, if you remember from the chart previously, is history. History is going to be a factor. So they want to know if you are able to have you been a good paymaster, so to speak, over a longer period of time. They're not really concerned, okay, you're just paying on time for the last 2 or 3 months. No, they want to see the duration, especially when you're going for like a mortgage, something that you're going to be in that mortgage 30 years, so to speak. So they want to see some history that you've established that you can prove and say, okay, yes, I do pay my bills on time, and this is my evidence. But anyone else can feel free to chime in and answer her question if you have any knowledge on that.
You talked about that 30%. That's also crucial. They want to make sure that you can manage your credit. So whatever your balance is, it needs to be less than 30% or zero. It helps if you carry a zero balance.
Not necessarily. Closer, they want to see that you're using that credit card now.
Yeah. And what I meant was, like, you might charge $200 and pay that $200 off in 30 days or 45 days.
Yeah. Right. Some people do that so they won't have interest, a whole lot of interest charge. Or pay the balance.
This is true. That was good conversation. Okay, so with that being said, we have a few opportunities for teachers. So the first opportunity, that if you participated in this professional development, up to 10 teachers in this session will be eligible to receive a stipend of $100 upon submitting the following evaluation, reflection, and evidence. So part of the evidence section does request you provide student work sample or photographs of students engaging in a financial literacy lesson that mirrors what you learned today. So of course, if you decide to do this with your students virtually, that's perfectly fine. Take some screenshots so you can record the session, just for your evidence component. If you decide to do it, you modify this presentation as you see fit to your audience. You will have 30 days after today if you decide to participate with this incentive. Another incentive by South Carolina Economics is if you want to participate in a 3-part workshop series, Understanding Physical Responsibility, Coronavirus, you can get a $100 gift card for participating in these 3 webinars, and you have to register for them. Registration information is there. And another opportunity with Next Gen Personal Finance, you can participate in 5 hours of virtual PD, and you will be entered to win a drawing for a $100 Amazon gift card. Their virtual PDs are actually pretty awesome. I did one yesterday, and it was an awesome PD on philanthropy. and I learned a whole lot. Their PDs range, like you can do they have multiple sessions throughout the day. So some of the sessions are 1 hour, some of them are 3, and some of them are even 7 hours. So it depends on your level of engagement and what you would like to do, but it's pretty awesome, good experience. And at this time, I'll take any questions that you may have. Questions, concerns?
This is Shaquata Ferguson. I don't have any questions, but I thank you for taking the time out to do this.
Great, great, great. Did everybody get let me put this back on the screen here. The link to sign in?
No, I didn't, I don't think.
Okay.
Neither did I. I didn't either.
I'll put it in the chat right now so that I have to have you to sign in so I can see the presentation. So let's see here.
I tried to do it with the QR code, so just let me know whether you got it or not. I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get the information.
You said that having many requests on your credit report gives it a negative effect.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you talk with creditors and they can say, I can pull a credit report and it won't have any effect on your credit. How can that be done?
Sometimes they pull a soft pull. If they pull a soft pull, it does not, affect your credit. But typically, it kind of depends on what you are applying for. For example, like a car. If you were going to purchase a car, I would not recommend necessarily going to the dealership because they're going to shop your loan. They'll do a credit app on you and you sign, you don't realize that they've done sent it to 10 or 20 creditors without you knowing it. So unless you have that discussion with them to say, okay, how many people are you, getting to look at my application or whatever. So in this case, a lot of times I'll get my own financing before I go to the dealership. So, that's always something that could happen, but I don't know if I answered your question.
You did.
So I put it in the chat, and this is also the QR code on the screen for you to go ahead and sign in. It should look like this when you go to it for you to put your information in. And I have 4 responses so far, and these are the 4 that I've received so far.
Oh, good. What email you want to use for you? The one for
Jennifer _ Stewart.
Okay, so you don't want to use everybody else using the DLC one.
Because I don't know if I'll be able to activate that.
Okay,
so the Bose has the other one too.
All right, Jennifer _
Stewart.
Okay.
At live.com.
So we just need to scan this?
Okay. If you have a QR code reader, it will scan.
Okay.
If not, the link is in the chat. Go to the chat and copy and paste the link.
So you can hang up now?
Yes.
Okay.
And it'll come up like that. And while you're doing that, since I have you on, I would recommend going online. If you have a Facebook account, South Carolina Economics have a wonderful Facebook page. They put many opportunities up there, many activities for you to do with students. They put, abundance of information on their Facebook page.
I look forward to doing some of these things with my grandchildren because it'll keep them off the computer and other stuff.
Yes.
Can you put the barcode back up so I can see it?
Right, I didn't scan it.
It's better, like that's a question.
Everyone have it?
Got it.
Okay, so what do we do with the barcode?
You can either scan it, or this is the website. You can type it in, or I put it in the chat so you can copy and paste it. And once
I tried to type it in, but it wouldn't let me type in.
Did you try to copy and paste it from the chat?
Okay.
Because when you do that, this should come on your screen so that you can register. And at this time, this PD is complete, so I don't want to hold anyone up. I want to honor your time. I'll stay on as long as I need to get everyone registered, but feel free to exit, and thank you for participating today. And I hope—
Let me ask you a question before folks leave.
Yes, ma'am.
And just to let you know, Ms. Holiday and I are here. How many places actually teach financial literacy currently?
So just for Manning, for example, we don't have it as a course. I never had it as a course in my career, but I've always infused it in my curriculum in the mathematics classroom because I thought it was necessary.
So where do you all see this most appropriately? As a separate course, or embedded into the employability class, or where?
I know I could probably embed into my employability class.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You have a consumer math class.
Yeah. Anyone else?
So then going back to another question then.
Yes, ma'am.
So we take a look at the units of study for GED, and we look at the strands or the standards that's actually expected in each one of those units.
Mm-hmm.
Can we then tag financial literacy on those that folks would know, and it would be consistent throughout the district?
So I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's better to do them as workshops. And the reason why I say that is because of our population, and they're so transient, at least at Manning, and they are very much interested in this topic. And they want to know, because they want to know how to restart their life. You know, what can they do? Most of them know and understand the impact of credit, for example. But this is just one, small aspect of financial literacy. There's so many others. So what I try to do is frame them in the terms of like a Friday workshop, for example, for our students. So that it's a beginning and an end, is not necessarily a continuum. So if they miss one workshop, it's okay. They still walk away, with that particular information. So I try to provide them with something tangible they can use, they can take action on, and they, know what to do. They're very interested in, how to purchase a car, how to purchase a house, and how to establish credit and things like that. Luckily, one of the offenders at Manning is really an expert in this area. So he actually started teaching a course with approval from the warden on this. So there's a lot of interest there for sure.
So then if we offered it as a workshop, would you then open it up to inmates outside of just education folks?
I would definitely recommend it. We have not opened it up, but it would be a great opportunity. I think there'd be a lot of interest there. And I think, they would really love it and benefit tremendously from it.
Okay, we can talk about this further. Thank you.
This is good to use with a church youth group too.
Yeah.
Really good.
Could you put the QR code back up again?
Yes, ma'am. So can you imagine when you were a teenager, if you were equipped with all the information that, we shared today about credit, and, you may have made some better decisions over the years. So that's what we want to try to do, is equip our youth and our students in general so they can be better financial consumers and so forth. All right. Well, everyone, I have a class to get ready for.
Okay.
So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. I'll put my contact information back up as well.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.